We live. We live in effect. Welcome.
We back.
We back in the house. Hey, welcome everyone to the next episode, the new episode of Muck KIlla Talking Black. Welcome, join the conversation. This is a show where black people can talk to black people about the black experience on this continent or anywhere in the diaspora. So we want you to join the conversation. If you are black, if you're not black, you're just interested in different cultures and you want to join in and listen to the conversation, we welcome you as well. Let's get it started. I am your main man, Muck the Empath, along with my co-host and amigo, KIlla Conscious King in the house.
How y'all doing this evening? Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming out.
Yes, sir.
Let's make this interactive and ask some questions. We're going to give you some information tonight and just kind of have a conversation. So thanks for joining us this evening. And, we're going to get into it. What you got for them this evening, Muck?
Oh, first of all, before we get into it, let's take care of some business. Hey, if you're watching this on any platform, we welcome you. You may be on YouTube, you may be on Roku, Facebook Live, whatever. Hey, we're happy to have everybody here joining us. But if you want to help us out, hey, download, go to your app store, go to the Playroom, Google Playroom, Play Store, and download Media Room 360. Media Room 360 app. This is a black-owned platform. Again, minority, woman-owned platform. Again, Miss Shawnee Scott, she's put it down for the people so we can help educate, entertain the culture. Big ups to the Shawnee. So support the sister, support the channel, support the other content that's on here. We got great content here that's designed to push the culture forward. Big Break Room, Shawnee and Mills on the MIC in the morning. Check out those shows as well as some other inspirational shows that we got to uplift the people. So again, support that. And like I said, we're welcoming everybody to listen in on the show. If you are here just to listen as an agent to go back and tell the man what we talking black about, then like I said, we welcome you too, because everything we speak here is true. We want to be as authentic as possible in helping our people understand the situation that we're in so we can come up with solutions to the problems that we face commonly here. So if you want to go tell something, like Martin Lawrence say, run tell that. Now, let's get into some business. To my main man, I'm going to turn it over to my sidekick and partner, KIlla. What it do?
Well, yeah, again, we want to hit people with tonight's opening. And tonight we're talking about education. In every show that we have, we're going to share a definition from Neely Fuller to kind of give us some context as to how we should be actually applying the term education. And we just really want to have a conversation with you. But we're going to start out first with what Neely says about education. And he said basically he lists out suggestions. He doesn't give you a formal definition. But what he says is that he gives you suggestions for you to follow. These suggestions pertain to what a victim of racism, white supremacy should or should not do in the second area of people activity called education. Okay. And again, there's 9 areas of activity. That's education, entertainment, economics, labor, law, religion, politics, sex, and war and/or conflict. Yeah. And so we want to use this as a foundation for our conversation. And what he goes on to say is that each person should choose to speak and act in according to one or more of these suggestions presented, but only if he or she decides to do so in a, to speak or act accordingly to those suggestions that are presented. But only if he decides to do so, and no person should speak or act according to any suggestion herein unless you decide on your own that you judge that situation and you've chosen that it's going to help eliminate white supremacy, racism, or help to produce justice.
Okay.
And lastly, it's important for us to know and understand that one or more suggestions selected from any area of activity should be used in a constructive combination with one or more other suggestions selected from other areas of activity. If an individual person chooses to utilize those suggestions presented, he or she should do so in a manner at a specific time, a specific place that will produce the most constructive results in the revelation of truth or the production of justice or correctness. Basil, what you think about that?
Okay. So I need to get some clarification on his outline of education. Again, go back through the basic concept that he just described as education.
Right. So he doesn't go into any formal definition.
Okay.
But what he's saying is that you have the individual choice to choose which activities best produce the most constructive result.
Okay, got you.
Right?
So in
the area of education, we all know what education is, and he's not trying to tell you what education is. He's just trying to say when you choose to do something in education, it must produce justice.
Okay. So with that, and we're talking specifically about education today. So in that framework, one of the things that I think about when I think about the education is if you don't leave with knowledge of self, then I don't think you've been educated. You know what I'm saying? If you don't have knowledge of self at the end of your tutelage, then you haven't been educated, you've been indoctrinated about somebody else's philosophy. So that's a good framework he's saying, and that's what I'm thinking. If I don't know who I am at the end of some teaching, then what have I gained? You know what I'm saying? So that's what I think about education, as far as what it's designed to do. And now I'm asking myself, if that's the barometer, am I learning more about who I am and what my place is in the world? Now we got to ask this: are we seeing that from our kids that are being educated in the system, in American education system?
No. It's like you said, it's more of an indoctrination, right? It's go here and do this type of activity, not a what can I learn or what can I get the most out of this particular activity. Yeah. And unfortunately, that leads us to being led astray. When you don't have the critical thinking skills and things of that nature, what it does is it doesn't allow you to make the best decision. So your education should solve problems.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is just my own personal view at this point, right? If your education isn't solving your problem, then you're not properly being educated.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
No, I agree. If you don't have any constructive things to bring to your community to help you build your community, then I'm thinking something's wrong with that system of education. So one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight was let's talk about a couple things, the points, but let me go through them real quick. The low achievement rate amongst African American kids in the system. All right. We're going to discuss that. I want to talk about the school prison pipeline, school to prison pipeline. Some people don't believe that's a thing. Some people do. We want to kind of go into that and get our opinions about that and get the people's opinion about how that works. And then the problems with the education system. How are we, what are the flaws or the inefficiencies in the system that maybe we can touch on? And then at the end, like I said, we're going to come up with a few solutions or ideas that I thought about that I might, suggest to the people that are really entrenched into the education. But let's start with low. Let's start with low achievement. And what I want to do, if you wouldn't mind sharing, you shared this with me over the years, your experience with education, how you felt about your education upbringing.
Well, no, that's a great question. I mean, in the beginning, I was a very poor student, probably, because I felt like the education system really wasn't inclusive. Mm-hmm. It wasn't allowing me. So at the age, I believe it was in the first grade. And I told you the story before, but I'm gonna tell it again. And I raised my hand in class, right? First day of school, teacher asked a question, and she says, "Who knows the answer to this?" And of course, I raised my hand. I'm animated. I'm excited. I'm sitting in the front row. I knew my teacher saw me. And that's when I kind of got the indication that maybe she doesn't want me to participate, because I raised my hand, and and I'm not blaming the teacher. I'm not saying she had a problem. I'm just saying that I raised my hand, and she didn't call on me.
She never acknowledged you.
Yeah, she didn't acknowledge me at all. So I look around, nobody else in class is raising their hand. And then I get in my chair and I do like that, right? Hey, teacher.
You're anxious. Yeah.
And so at that point, I kind of started to withdraw. I had all this excitement, and I wanted to show. My parents had really provided us a really good foundation of education. We would do blends and at-home workbooks. This is before I even got to school, so I was really excited to share what I had learned. But at the same time, I wasn't being given an opportunity to participate. Again, and I'm sure this happened to other people. I read a book called The Envy of the World by Ellis Coles. Mm-hmm. And in that book, he described a very similar experience that he had by being disenfranchised as a young Black male in school early on. And I grew up in Richardson, and so a lot of the kids in my class didn't look like me. In elementary and all throughout my education in the junior highs and high schools, and it was really a awakening for me in the first grade. So then I withdrew and I became a class clown. I found a way to interject my thoughts in the class and engage, because I really have a strong sense of expression, which is why we're doing the show, right? So
definitely.
And so I had a whole career of barely making my grades and doing just enough. I call myself a just enougher, because I would do just enough to play sports. And I excelled on the sports arena in that side of things, but not in the classroom, because it didn't seem like it was acceptable for me to participate.
They accepted you on the field, huh?
Say that?
They accepted you on the field. They were more than willing to make sure you got the treatment you needed when it came to the field, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, they were. I mean, I was always the guy that they wanted on the team. When you're a difference maker, you can be inclusive there, right? Yeah. But I think the psychology was that you can do it out there, but not in the classroom. And I didn't. But see, here's the thing: all my sisters, were straight A students. My dad was a straight A student. My mom was a straight A student. I'm the only one in the nuclear family that's stinking up the place with the grades. But the funny thing about that is I was educating myself in another way. And I was finding out how to survive in a world that was going to shut me out. And I never let that really get the best of me. Because they didn't let me participate, I found other ways to participate, right? And so, I would fail classes and barely be able to play ball because I wasn't doing well in class, and it was like a TV show. And is KIlla gonna pass? Is KIlla gonna pass this semester? Or this 6 weeks, so he can play in the big game or whatever, right? So, if people that know me know that I was not a very good student at all. And matter of fact, when I transferred from TCU to Abilene Christian, it was because of my grades. It wasn't necessarily because of anything else. And so, Fortunately, after I graduated college, I then began to understand how important education was because they weren't opening doors for people who didn't have it, right?
Yeah.
I tried to start a business. Well, I did start a business and it worked out. I made good money, but I hit a ceiling and I didn't like that. I didn't like nobody telling me how much money I could make. So, I continued to study. I got into Neely Fuller. Me and you started having conversations and, it blew up from there. And now things are really good. How about you, man? What's your story when it comes to education?
So, I had a very school itself, like the actual work was always very easy for me for the most part. Once I figured out the lingo and how the system worked, it was kind of easy. So I had a lot of time to joke around and play around. So I got more in trouble because I would finish my work and then I'm over there playing with my friends. We tripping out across the room, throwing spitballs, and I'm being disruptive because actually the stuff is kind of elementary to me at this time. So I'm checking out myself, not because they're not calling on me, because I'm really not interested at the time. I'm not. They're teaching me subjects that I'm really not interested in.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, but everything that I was interested in and everything that I wanted to learn, I pretty much stayed engaged. And one thing that me and you talk about, from a young kid, I always had teachers, white and black teachers, that were there to support me. I never felt like that I was being excluded, like, and we've had this conversation. So going through school, although I wasn't a good student either, not because I couldn't do the work or because they weren't calling me, because I wasn't at class. I was doing other things because I'm like, I can do that later. So that was kind of my mindset there. So that in itself kind of, this is a similar story from all our friends. We got, Chief just put up on it. He in the house tonight and he was talking about that too. Yeah. So, this is a common thread from people that are black. This is a common thread. So that kind of, attributes to the low achievement rates. But let's get into this. If we look, the statistics show in every category of testing and achievement in schools across the nation that black people are at the bottom of those ratings. And that's every school district, every county, every state, holistically. Now, you obviously have those high achievers, individuals, but as a group, we're always at the bottom. Now, you can say that they throw the socioeconomic piece in there with us. Well, poor kids and kids that don't have two parents at home and don't have access to resources and internet and things like that, that could explain why the achievement gap is lower for us. But when you look at two-parent home household, middle income African Americans, two-parent household, even when you give the African American kids the resources, we're still scoring lower than the white kids and the Asian kids, right? So we're asking ourselves, so if it's not socioeconomic, what's the other factors in it? Because, and then we say, is it the teachers? Because can we blame the teachers? Because now we're at 50% achievement, but the white kids are at 80, 90%. So we can't necessarily blame the teachers because somebody's getting it. The white kids seem to be getting it. We're just not getting it, right? So, and now we're throwing a whole bunch of money for decades, for years and centuries on this bridging the achievement gap. No amount of money, no amount of resources are actually coming to solve this problem. So let's get into what's the real deal with the low achievement gap? And do you see any other possible reasons that we're not making any progress on this gap?
Well, I do. And to me, it has to do with resources.
Okay.
And of course, we always are going to have people that live in certain areas who make a certain level of income,
Mm-hmm.
and they're paying a certain level of taxes
Mm-hmm.
that are higher than those who have, they don't have those incomes. So their taxes aren't giving them access to the same amount of resources. If you have $100 and this other person's got $1, there's differences in what you can buy.
Mm.
And when you're looking at taxes, that's the base in which the schools are receiving that income. They can pay their teachers more. They can get more better technology. And, they have talked about sharing of revenues amongst different tax bases to give those resources to people who need them the most.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't always happen, because who's lobbying for the people that don't have the money?
Yeah.
And so, these are just conclusions I've come to based on information that I've read.
Yeah.
And I'm always open to have the discussion. And if you want to ask some questions in the comments, this is a great time to do that, because what we're going over now is, some of the barriers to why, there's or to show that there's a connection between money and education. And when you have it, this is like Alabama. The resources Alabama has are going to be different than the resources that, Deion Sanders has over there at Jackson State.
Yeah.
That means there's a certain type of kids they can recruit, and there's certain places they can travel to because of the budgets that they have.
Yeah.
So from a resource standpoint, some communities, and they happen to be Black, are underfunded.
Okay.
They're underserved.
Okay.
Because of the lack of those resources. So that's one of the reasons in which I think, we're having this imbalance.
Let's touch on this, because before integration, when we were left with 100% African American teachers that were educating our kids, we made
nurturing our kids.
Yeah, that we're making our biggest advancements in the society during that time when our kids were being taught by our people. You see what I'm saying? Now, when integration happened, there's 85,000 Black teachers and administrators across the country. When they integrate the schools, now you're losing about 65,000 of the educators. Now, not only are they no longer in the schools, and the schools are now majority run and led by white administrators and white teachers, now you also got those mother and fathers who were teachers who are now out of a job, and now that's adding more to the kids that still got to go to these integrated schools, and their parents no longer have jobs in the education field.
Right.
So that structure right there, I've always been looking at that, because my parents grew up, and I think my mom grew up her whole life. She's older than my father. She grew up in segregated school. She went to the Black school. My dad, I think he was in the 10th grade when they integrated. So you go your whole life, and you've been raised, you've been nurtured, you've been taught by people that care about you specifically and your whole self. Now to an environment where you're only learning material, and the material and information doesn't apply to you. You don't see yourself in it. And I know we've had this conversation for a long time. So, could the low achievement gap be attributed to the fact that there's maybe a lack of empathy for the different cultures that you're trying to teach?
That's a great point. Culture is something that you learn at home.
Yeah.
And if I'm learning a different culture at home than what you're learning, then how do I assimilate when we come together in school?
Yeah, you're right.
So the schools are going to be, geared to teaching those kids who belong to the dominant culture.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what the indoctrination process you talked about earlier is really about. Assimilation, and making sure that, we when a kid raises his hand, that he doesn't think this is about him. Right?
Yeah.
We want him to know his place in this system. And this place isn't in the front row. This place is in the back row whenever we feel like calling on them. So at the same time, you know, the education, the formal education we get in our society is not, you know, I had multiple learning styles. I was auditory, kinesthetic, and you know, a few other combinations. But I didn't figure that out till after I got out of college.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had a cycle of failure, which actually ended up being good for me because I'm not scared of failure. Yeah. Now I'm not worried about if I fail. If things don't work out, I will find a way to win. And I've already kind of taught myself that's the education I got, was how to overcome when somebody puts a barrier in your face. It says you can't come in here and make any money because we don't like you, or we don't think that you are what we're looking for, even though I've shown time and again that those things aren't necessarily true.
Yeah.
And and I say it about myself so that, you know, people don't confuse my point of view.
Yeah.
But at the same time, again, what I was learning at home was African history. We were watching Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, John Clark. You know, my dad had he was helping scientists come up with you know, certain things, and so they would come to the house as well. He was helping, you know, he would donate to their cause, and he was a real community guy. That's part of my education, and so history became my first, after basketball. History became my first passion.
Yeah.
And I started to learn about, you know, African history from antiquity, something they don't teach in school, and that gave me such a high level of confidence. Even to this day, I have a high sense of purpose in what I'm trying to do, and that's a lot different than what the normal experience is. I get so on one hand, you know, there is a kind of a blocking or disenfranchisement of my inclusion in school, but it pushed me to say, hey, I got a good mind. There's all kinds of smart people around me. I must have something going on.
Yeah.
And just kind of went in that route. So
yeah. So let's talk about this too, and we're gonna segue into the school to prison pipeline. So, and you mentioned earlier about money being a part of, you know, the whole situation. They're throwing a lot of money at this situation. There's a lot of people, school board, administrators, teachers. My wife is a teacher. I mean, half our living is made because she's a public school teacher. So, but we keep paying a whole lot of people to educate the kids, and I don't see us getting the results from public school that we've been looking for, and it's proven every year because of the gap there. And if everybody is given a fair shot, right, and have the same access to the information and processes the information the same, then we should have a similar failure rate across all cultures in this country, right? But we don't. So with that being said, we also
hold on. Like, what about people that say that some kids are just smarter than others?
Yeah, no, I think we would see that. We would see that 10% or that level of knowledge being separated, and it not be separated by culture and race. It'll be separated by, I'm just smarter than this guy or that girl, and that would be the determining factor. That would be a merit based versus we're seeing how the Asians have the top economic achievement in this country. You see what I'm saying? And then you have, I don't know if whites next. They used to be at the top, but the Asians are statistically, you know, the smarter people. And I'm also questioning these statistics as well too. I got to put that out there.
But what part of that is culture? What part of that is actual? You know, I mean, you know, do they have more brain than others? I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
that's a good question, because I'm asking, why are we even dividing it up by race or culture, ethnicity? That's one thing. And then when we look at this, as we go to prison, the pipeline, look at this. when you're on a path, and we know this statistically, those kids that aren't proficient at reading by the third grade, if you haven't met your minimum standards of reading at the third grade, at that point, they start separating the kids. Like, it's like you start going this way to special education, and then if you meet standards, then they put you in a whole different category. You know what I'm saying? So you start to see that when you start going below third grade, and they start funneling you into the special ed program, the schools get more money for that. They get more money when a kid is designated special ed. There's more funding there, right? So are they now pushing kids that don't immediately show in third grade that they've caught up?
Right.
And now check this out. Prisons we know are now traded on the stock market.
Yes.
Right? They are businesses. And as a business on the stock market, you know that you have to give a annual report and a projection of how much money you think you're gonna make in the coming years. Well, how do you know how many people gonna be in prison? How can you project how much revenue you're gonna have if you don't know people already coming to prison? How are you gonna project that there's gonna be so many prisoners? And how can you guarantee your shareholders that you're gonna have this many people in your prison to support their investment of your prison?
Right. Well,
now, check this out, and I'll let you go. The prison population, the prison companies, they project the number of inmates that they're going to need, the number of beds and cells that they're going to need based on the number of kids that don't meet third grade minimums.
Wow.
So, yes. So that's how they say, okay, if they ain't reading proficiently by third grade, the chances are they're going to be here with me.
We're going to get them.
We're going to get them. We're going to get them then. So let's go ahead and start building now and raising this money because they're coming, right? So,
wow.
So now we're saying the school to prison pipeline. Are they pushing our kids? Are they misleading our kids? Are they misdiagnosing our kids and not calling on them on purpose so they can funnel you into a system where there's profit to be made on the back end?
Do you think that anybody would ever admit to that?
Would they ever mention it?
Admit that that's going on?
Oh, not from the institutions. Not nobody that's actually involved in the education field. You know what? I don't know, because honestly, I have heard people. I didn't make this up. All this information I've got is out there. So there's obviously people that know, but it could be just like everything else, man. We know how police brutality is really working. Nobody, it's easy for us to say that they're not targeting black men. There's no evidence for them to be targeting black men, but we can see it clearly. Those that see it, and I think there's those that see this school to prison pipeline deal, but the powers that be that control the money control the narrative.
I'm gonna take some time out to welcome everybody to the Muck KIlla Talking Black podcast. We're on here with the help of Miss Shawnee Scott, and we want to share with you there's some events taking place. Action Jackson's got the Super Golf Swing coming up, on February the 7th at the
Top Golf.
Top Golf, exactly.
Top Golf, yeah, that's Super Bowl Sunday.
Sunday, come on out. We're going to be practicing all social distancing and protocols. Wear your mask. Take a good shower. Make sure you wash your hands. But we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna have some prizes, and it's gonna be a good event. So we want to also tell you to download the Media 360 app.
Download it.
That's where you should be accessing the show. we are eligible on this Facebook Live and YouTube, but it's the Media 360 app that we need you to download so that we can get directly to you. And then thank you for everybody that's come out to watch us this far. Make sure you're asking questions in the comments. If you ask a question, we'll answer. If you make a statement, we'll read it. But there's nothing really for us to respond to. So thanks for everybody coming out. But back to education, Muck. I think this is a great topic because it's your education that it should solve your problems. So if there's an income gap, your education should allow you to go get an opportunity or start your own business, entrepreneurship. And I think that's another thing we need to look at from an education perspective is educating entrepreneurial people that are entrepreneurial and how they add to the economy and they can employ people and then support our community as well. So what do you think about those combinations, man, and whatever you want to talk about?
No, I think that's a great point. The whole process of us educating and I always see he commented earlier about that our community doesn't see education as part of our survival. So when we're educating, we're listening. I mean, history is great. Science is great. All these other subjects are great. But at some point, we need to be teaching our kids how to be self-sufficient.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And then being an entrepreneur is a part of is having creativity, exploring creativity in a business standpoint. You know what I'm saying? From a business perspective is what it's a creation. You're creating a business and products to satisfy the needs of the people in the community. That's a creative process. Now, they allow us to be creative when it comes to the arts and entertainment and athletics. But for some reason, we're not really pushing creativity when it comes to business production and understanding how that system works. So our culture, our culture and environment teaches us that education has nothing to do with our survival. That's a great comment by Chief. Yeah, definitely right. We're thinking, hey, go get a job, get an education so you can go out and you can get a job. Well, who's providing the jobs? Where the jobs coming from? Where's the entrepreneurs? And from the entrepreneurs,
resources, right? If you have all the resources, I gotta come to you to get them. Yeah, I gotta ask you to feed me or ask you for a job. Yeah, because there's people who have chosen to gather these resources and claim them as their own. Yeah, and when they do that, now they're responsible because they got all the resources. Yeah, where else am I going to get? And so if your education isn't supporting how to get your natural resources without having to go to ask somebody for those resources, then that's a quality education.
Yeah, definitely. That hits it on the head right there.
How do you get that though? I mean, how do you actually get a quality education? And so, go ahead.
I was thinking about this earlier, man. And there's this old ancient saying, I don't know where it originates from, but it says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right?
Good.
So and to me, that means this. When you really want to learn something, you're going to seek out, and then the information is going to be provided to you. And that's been, you cool, bro?
Yeah, that's probably why you shouldn't be
went down alone.
Yeah,
it went down the wrong pipe
on the podcast, but
yeah,
I'll work it out.
All right, yeah. So what was that before you like to choke the death on me? Yeah, no, but so in the education field, if you're not actually learning something that you can use, you're actually just learning so you can go get a job somewhere. And that's what they're trying to teach us to do. Go get a job. But the entrepreneurs and the people with resources are the ones that's creating the jobs. And it says to me that that you have to. I'm losing my train of thought because I figured out what I was talking about earlier. When the teacher appears, I mean, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Now, this is an example. I've been in real estate. I play football. I've been in commercial real estate for over 15 years. My kids have been to my offices. They've sat and they've met with the CEOs of the companies. They know them personally. They've been around the environment. When I was growing up, I used to drive down by downtown Dallas and look at the buildings and be amazed about what's in there, what goes on in there. I had no idea what was actually was happening in those buildings. I was just fascinated by how tall they were, and I was always wondering, right, what it was. Now, if someone had told me what they were doing, how commercial real estate worked when I was little, I probably would have gravitated that a long time because I was always interested in the building process and how it got done.
You had a natural
I had a natural appreciation for it.
Yeah.
Now, and what I'm saying is my kids have seen a lot of different things that I've done over the years, and job-wise and career-wise. Trailer wants to be a football player, not because I asked him to be. That's what he wants to be. He's seen everything else I'm doing. I'm telling him, hey man, look at this. What about being a doctor? We know doctors. He knows his basketball coach is a professor, a doctor, so he's around a lot of different Black people that have a lot of different diverse experiences. But he wants to be a football player because that's what he wants to do. And that's what he's asking questions about. And when I was little, I was asking questions about the things that I want to know. But we sit in a school classroom all day, people teaching us shit. We ain't trying to learn that shit anyway. You know what I'm saying? Kids ain't trying to learn nothing but just like saying you like history. So history was interesting to you. You know what I'm saying? And that's another thing. We're forcing curriculums on kids and we haven't asked the kids what they want to learn. Oh, you know what I'm saying? It's more indoctrination, like we said, versus letting kids flourish and understand what they want to learn. And then there could be a teacher that could be provided for them on that particular deal.
Yeah, great question down here in the comments. You want to address that?
Do we need more Black educators that think like us, or do we need more Black mentors, or both? Okay, great question, Teran. Teran is my kinfolk, East Texas, Mount Pleasant in the house, and he is an educator and a medical health care professional as well. But yeah, I really do think we need both. I was just telling my wife today, I was saying that because the lack of Black leadership across the board, there are Black administrators, but the overall structure is not being led by people of our culture and think like us, right? So why can't the teachers, all the Black educators and administrators across the continent get together in an alliance? I believe that every Black kid, I don't care if it's 3 Black kids at the school, if there's 4 Black administrators or teachers there, those kids should be able to come and confide and have the support of any Black person, feel comfortable talking to any Black teacher, administrator on that campus to feel if they're not getting what they need. And also, if they do that, if there's a national alliance, we just looked up today, there is a national body called the National Alliance of Black School Educators. I think that is, but it's a nationwide organization for Black educators to kind of network and help each other because each ISD is actually different. So there doesn't have to be any cohesiveness in a sense between the ISDs.
Right.
But what we do see consistently across the ISDs and across the states is the same low failure rate between our people. So I think it's incumbent on our Black educators and teachers to form an alliance along with the parents. And the parents are key because the parents got to push this. The parents have to push this. You know what I'm saying? Hey, we want our kids to be taught by people that understand our culture
And more importantly, yeah, I mean, those are great points. I mean, we want our kids to be taught by people that have a vested interest in their growth.
Yeah.
Or depending on them to pass the baton to, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if and here's one thing I think about education that we haven't discussed yet.
Okay.
And before I say that, though, don't forget, everybody, and welcome to the Muck KIlla podcast. Download the Apple Media 360. That's where we're going to be able to access. You get direct access to us in our show every Friday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. There's a lot of other shows on the platform you need to take a look at. So when you're in the app, go take a look at Shawnee
and Mel's in the morning.
Yes.
Bink's break room.
Yes.
In the 214.
Yes.
Yeah, man, we got a lot more content coming too. So if you are a content creator and you're looking for a platform, man, reach out to us. Hit us up for real. Yeah, definitely.
But back to what we're talking about, Basil. If we don't have a concerted effort collectively to make sure our kids get this knowledge, we have to make sure they're getting it at home.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like Chief was saying earlier, it's the parents' ultimate responsibility to make sure their kids are prepared for life.
Bet.
We can't just send kids to public school and think that they're going to get everything they need. They're not going to get everything they need. Yeah. We need to take personal responsibility in making sure our kids are getting that substance that they're going to need to survive and then thrive in the world we live in.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I would say that was a big push. When I wasn't able to get it in school, I got it at home. Mm-hmm. My dad was proactive in making sure that I got African history before I left high school. Yeah. That I was a good, I was a bad student, but one of the classes I did good at was math.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, for math, there was no politics. 1 + 1 = 2. If you know how to calculate that, you can win in the math class. And what I learned about my history was the ancient Egyptians, when they built those pyramids, they used and intuited math to accomplish those high projects and create these structures that are still alive today. Yeah. That we can't understand how they did what they did.
Yeah.
And we can get into that another time. But my point is that education responsibility rests on the parents to make sure your kids have a 360, right? Like 360 media, right? They got a 360 understanding of what they must do once they leave your house, once they leave my house. And so, I'm glad we're having this conversation.
So let's get into some of the things that you just talked about. Solutions. What can we do to remedy some of these problems that we're having in education? And one of the things that I've actually tried before, and I do recommend, is homeschool. Homeschooling, especially.
Tell them about the curriculum.
I'll tell you this. So when we moved back to Dallas, we were in Mount Pleasant for about 7 years before we moved back to Dallas. And when we moved back to Dallas, Sheree was still in school. She was going to college to get her teacher certification and start teaching. So she was already she was about a year away from graduating. But so when I came up here a year early to start my real estate career over, after being in education, because I was coaching football and I was the ISS instructor at Mount Pleasant High, and I was a football coach. So I had been in education too. So a lot of this stuff I'm saying I know for a fact because I was in the system. I was seeing how it was working in the politicizing of our kids' education and the monetizing of our kids' future. I've seen that firsthand. You have to have somebody inside that has your best interest. And Mount Pleasant actually provided us that because we knew everybody in the town. So we knew like some of the teachers that taught us, white and black, we're teaching our kids, and they had more of a respect and understanding. So our kids got a lot what they needed. So when we moved to Dallas, you know, it was man, I took Sheree by the school that Beja was going to go to. Beja was about to enter junior high. And when I drove her by this school and the kids were walking out, Sheree started crying because she's like, the kids was looking unruly. You know, it's just kids. It was some kids looking about grown on the campus. You know what I'm saying? It was a different look coming from Mount Pleasant. And we was like, we don't want to send our kids. I can't send my baby to that environment. So what we decided to do was we decided to homeschool our kids. And I found a curriculum, African-centered curriculum. It was online, and they sent me everything, and we sit down and we were able to teach our kids about Garvey, about Malcolm X, about Martin Luther King, the real story about Martin Luther King, not the just we shall overcome, the real activist Martin Luther King Jr. So my kids were starting to learn that stuff. But when Sheree graduated, she went to work. My career, my real estate practice was picking up, and we started running out of time to be able to do that. So we ended up putting our kids back in public school, and we were on them every day. We were there with them, but Trailer especially, because Beja is like your sister. Beja's a good student, so it doesn't really matter where she's just a good student. Trailer was having the same issues and interactions that we were having, where the teachers were picking on him and dismissing him because Trailer has dyslexia, for one thing, that he's been diagnosed with dyslexia. And I want to speak on that on another show about the diagnosis and what that diagnosis means. I'm suggesting that there's a lot more Black people out there that have that ability. I'm calling dyslexia ability because it's just a different way to process language. And once you learn the pathways to that, man, you got to be basically, in order to be diagnosed with dyslexia, you have to be high intelligence. First of all, it's just a different way of reading and understanding language. But anyway, so we homeschooled our kids, and we found other families that were doing the same, and we were able to get that interaction there with them. It's just that we kind of run out of time chasing a living, you know what I'm saying? But so we put our kids back in there. Like I said, Trailer having all kind of problems. And I was talking to the president of the company I was working with, and his son had dyslexia, and he was telling me, hey man, you might want to look at this school that I sent my son to. It specialized in that. And it was a private school, and it wasn't cheap. But when we went to an orientation. We just went to see what they were doing, man, how they were doing it. And when they explained to us their process, we knew that's what our kids needed. And we sat down and said, you know what? Whatever we got to do, if we got to borrow money, if we got to cut back on expenses, or whatever we got to do, we got to use our resources to give our kids this education, give them this opportunity. And within the first 6 weeks, they did a whole bunch of testing, and both of my kids were low in the reading levels. They were not on track on their reading levels. After the first semester of being at that school, they had jumped 4 and 5 grade levels.
Wow.
Yeah. But I had to pay for that. We had to pay for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's,
you said you got the receipt.
I had the receipt because we weren't getting what we needed from the public school system. And I understand that there's a lot of families that aren't in a position to send their kids to a private school. And I'm not knocking that. So that's why I'm saying homeschooling, or getting the community together, or getting a bunch of other people together to help assist with that. I might have been working, but if it was another family down the street, that I could send my kids over there and knowing what they were getting taught and knowing what information my kids were being given would be, I think could really help us as a people. And it doesn't take much. I mean, like, especially in Texas, and check the rules in other states, there's no rules that you have to do to take your kids and homeschool them.
Well,
I mean, it's not like you just can you can take them out and write a little letter and say my kid's homeschooled. And
well,
that's
yeah.
all it really takes.
So when they talk about solutions, you know,
Yeah.
it's your education that allows you to understand what your options are.
Yeah.
And if your education doesn't provide you with options, the things you just said, some people are like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But you can.
Yeah.
And that's what education is all about. And I'm gonna chime in one more time and talk about, you know, download the app from Media 360. We got several shows on the app. Shawnee Scott and Mel's on the mic in the morning.
Yeah.
Recipe for Conversation with Antoinette.
Yeah,
hey, Big B's Breaking Room Podcast. Let's Get It Radio. Talking Black with Muck and KIlla. Thanks for coming in tonight and learning with Teacher Lou. And then we've got some ministry broadcasts. Wise Fisherman Church, Full Honor Ministries, and Grace Celebration Fellowship. Check all those out on the Media 360 app. Download that. And Muck, I'm going to ask you, man, what you want to get off your chest?
Man, I'm glad you asked it. This has been bugging me for a couple of days, man. We need, especially Black fathers, we need to stop whooping and beating our kids.
Why would you still feel so strongly about that?
I feel so because I'm looking at this situation, man, and I understand where we're coming from with it. You know, it's a tough world out there for Black boys. You know, so we do it in the guys that know what I need to make them tough. I need to make sure they're able to handle the situations when they get out here in the world. So I got to make sure they tough. But I'm thinking about this, that you as a grown man whooping and beating on your child is not going to prepare him to be fighting another grown man. First of all, your child should have to fight a grown man anyway. That's what you there for. So beating on him in order to get him tough is kind of counterproductive because he ain't gonna fight no grown man anyway unless you're not there.
Do you think it's a mixed message we sending our kids when we whoop them?
I think it is because I was literally, and I understand more now where my father was coming from. I mixed up with the stresses that he had with dealing with the system itself and trying to prepare me the only way he knew how. But at a point, I was afraid of my father. I was literally walking around eggshells because one of the people that I felt like should have been protecting me was also whooping on me. And then you got to go out and your friends or the people on the plane, you got to fight your friends on the playground. And then when you go to school, you got to fight the system of people trying to tell you not to do that. And in the homes where the mothers or the father's absent, sometimes the mothers take up those roles and say, well, I got to make my son tough, or it might be the uncle, or it might be the cousin. We constantly trying to make each other fit in. And let me tell you this before we log off. The reason why we do that is because that's what the white man told us to do. He said, hey, hold on.
Is it that he told us to do it?
Hold on. Listen, they said this. Hey, not in a word. They ain't tell us this, but they told us this. They said, listen, you better get him together. You better make sure he act right before he come see me. Because if he come to me acting like himself, I'm gonna kill him. You see what I'm saying? So our parents have been trying to shape us with what they call home training. Don't act like that. Don't get out there acting like that. But when we're growing up, we're getting beat for acting like ourselves. We're trying to find who we are.
Buck breaking.
We're getting buck broken by our own daddies and mamas.
But you said it real clearly. We learn this behavior from our interaction with our masters.
Yes.
And it's perpetuated over time, so that we're trying to act as if we're going to train these kids how to act before they get to the master, so they can
before they can be
or they can be good candidates that the master will pick.
Exactly. But we're stifling our own kids' soul development. We're not allowing them to be who they are because we're trying to protect them, and it's well and good meaning. But here's the deal, fathers. What we should be doing is preparing our sons to defend themselves. We're supposed to protect them until they get to the point where they are able to defend themselves.
We got to train them.
We've got to train them. And instead of our kids fighting each other in the street over bullshit colors, man, let them spar with each other. Let iron sharpen iron. Put them in a ring with rules and show them how to, defend each other and defend themselves in a camaraderie way. That way we not shooting and killing each other, because that's what's happening now.
So you saying take that energy that we're gonna whoop them with and train them and to develop the skills to be able to defend themselves.
Instead of having our kids fight each other over jealousy and colors and turf, let's get them in the ring and start sparring with each other. And that way they learn to respect each other.
That's going to give them the mental strength to overcome and adapt to life's challenges?
Exactly. Because when you know and you have confidence that you can protect yourself, if you get in a situation, you don't even cause much conflict. You so laid back, you're like, I ain't worried about them cats. I know if shit pop off, I'm good.
Right.
So you ain't looking for conflict. And this is where education falls back in. We're educating our kids how to defend themselves, and we need to be educating our kids how to communicate their feelings with each other. That way it doesn't necessarily have to escalate to conflict right off the bat, because that's what we jump. Our first thing is we jump into the ring. We jump in the squad over any kind of disagreement first.
So you're saying along with the physical, we got to give them mental training too, so that they understand not to give off mixed signals, and they can actually talk about the feelings that they're having versus yelling at somebody or trying to raise somebody or make it seem and not deal with their own specific issues.
Exactly. And not being able to deal with each other because we don't know how to communicate with each other, and now we jump in a fight.
What would that look like if black men had the skills to defend themselves and then had the mental ability to work together and find, solutions amongst one another, so that they didn't have to ask, somebody else for a job? They can go create one. They don't need to ask somebody for protection. They can provide that.
They can provide that for themselves and their families.
And it leads back to what you talked about earlier, is being self-sufficient.
Is it? Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Good talk, my brother.
This is good stuff, bro.
Today to wax eloquent about education. Next week we're gonna come back with you on another topic from the 9 areas of activity. Thank y'all all for joining us. Muck, any last comments?
Nah, man. Hey, thank you, my FBA brothers and sisters out there. Thank you for everybody that joined in and listened, man. Stay with us, man. Hey, if you like what you saw, we ain't asking you to. Hey, if you ain't no like and subscribe type of person, we understand it. But if the content you're hearing is beneficial, man, share it with somebody else, man. Get this out to somebody else that you think may benefit from it, man. Because we're trying to get everybody on the same page so we can actually start making some moves with the stuff we talking black. We need to start acting black.
And thinking black.
We out.